revenge with Lyra.
You don't deserve any help. That's what my parents said when I asked if I could borrow a few $100s to start my freelance project. Meanwhile, they just wired $76,000 to my sister, Ava, for her dream boutique. At the family dinner, Mom clinked her glass and said, "We invest in potential, Hannah. Ava has vision." I smiled through it, though the words felt like shards. I was 27, working 12-hour shifts at a marketing agency, saving every cent I could. Ava, 2 years younger, had never held a job longer than a month. When I told them I'd figured out myself, Dad laughed. "Don't be dramatic. Some people just aren't meant for business." My name is Hannah Reed, and that night I promised myself something simple. I'd build a life so solid, they'd choke on their doubt. The months that followed were brutal. I rented a windowless apartment, ate ramen for weeks, and built my marketing firm from my laptop on the floor. I worked until sunrise, pitching clients, building campaigns, teaching myself code, copy, design, everything. While Ava posted boutique selfies with champagne flutes and hashtags about manifestation, I posted invoices paid in full. Every dollar reinvested. Every setback logged. 2 years later, I didn't just have a small business. I had Reed Strategies, a firm managing contracts for luxury brands across 3 states. And one morning, as I walked into my glass front office, my assistant handed me a folder labeled $5 million deal, confirmed. By noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Ava just saw your company on the news. She's crying." I exhaled slowly, staring out at the skyline. Poetic timing had arrived. By that afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing.
Mom, Dad.
Even Ava. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched the interview replay on the local business channel, the reporter standing in front of our new headquarters, saying my name like it finally mattered. At just 29, Hannah Reed, founder of Reed Strategies, has secured a $5 million expansion deal with Marlowe & Company, one of the fastest-growing fashion houses in the country. Irony tasted sweet. Ava's boutique, the one they'd funded, had quietly closed a year earlier after months of bad reviews and unpaid rent. They never mentioned that to anyone, of course. That evening, I drove past my parents' house. The lights were on, and through the front window, I saw them sitting at the table, Mom clutching her phone, Ava's head buried in her hands, Dad pacing. The same table where they'd once told me I wasn't cut out for business. I didn't knock. I just watched for a moment, then drove away. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, not typed, but handwritten. Mom's handwriting. "Hannah, your success doesn't change the fact that you've grown cold. Families should celebrate each other, not hold grudges. Ava is struggling. If you have any heart left, you'll help her." I laughed out loud. Help her? The same sister who'd told me I was jealous when I refused to model for her failing brand? The same parents who'd refused to co-sign a $2,000 loan but had emptied their savings for her boutique launch? I tore the letter in half, poured myself a glass of wine, and whispered, I already helped, by showing her what real work looks like. But the next day, Ava showed up herself. When I opened my office door that morning, Ava was already there, sitting in the reception area, oversized sunglasses hiding her swollen eyes. She stood up the second she saw me. "Hannah, please." I didn't know where else to go. The staff pretended not to stare as I led her into the conference room. Her once perfect manicure was chipped. Her voice trembled. "They're foreclosing the boutique space. Mom and Dad won't help anymore. They said you're the only one who can fix this." I sat across from her, silent. It was surreal seeing the same sister who once told me, "You'll never make it without Mom and Dad," now asking for my help. I folded my hands. "How much do you owe?" She hesitated. "Around 30,000. But I can pay you back. I just need time." I raised an eyebrow. "Like the 76,000 they already gave you?" She flinched, eyes watering. "That wasn't fair, Hannah. You know I tried." "Tried?" I interrupted softly. "You had everything handed to you. I built this from nothing. Don't confuse effort with comfort." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioner. Then she whispered, You hate me. I sighed. No, Ava. I just finally learned how to love myself enough to stop saving people who never showed up for me. Her shoulders dropped. She stood, grabbing her purse, and for the first time in years, she looked small. You'll regret this, she said quietly before walking out. As the door shut, I felt nothing. No guilt. No anger. Just peace. But peace doesn't last long when guilt wears your last name. That evening, I got a message from Dad. You've gone too far this time. She's gone. The message sat on my screen like a bruise. She's gone. My fingers froze. I called Dad immediately, my voice shaking. What do you mean she's gone? He sighed, that heavy, disappointed kind of sigh I'd known since childhood. She packed her things and left. No note, no calls. Your mother's hysterical. You could have just helped her instead of humiliating her again. Humiliating her? I said, stunned. I didn't do anything. You refused your sister when she needed you most, he snapped. This family's tearing apart because of your pride.
Click.
He hung up. I sat there in silence, heart pounding, trying to push away the wave of guilt crawling up my spine. But deep down I knew Ava was dramatic, not suicidal. She'd done this before. Disappear for effect. Reappear when everyone was desperate. Still, I couldn't sleep that night. My mind replayed her trembling voice, her tear-streaked face. What if this time was different? The next morning I got my answer. A voicemail, shaky breathing, her voice barely a whisper. Hannah, I didn't mean to make things worse. I just wanted them to stop comparing us. I'm sorry. The timestamp was 1:37 a.m. I replayed it 3 times before calling the police to report it. By afternoon, they'd found her car parked at a small coastal motel 2 hours away. She'd checked in under a fake name. She was alive, exhausted, broke, but alive. When they brought her home, Mom burst into tears, clutching her like a rescued child. Dad refused to look at me. And that night, when the house finally quieted, Ava texted me 2 words. Thank you. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker had started moving beneath all that silence. The next few days were heavy with silence. Mom stopped calling, Dad ignored my texts, and Ava disappeared from social media. I tried to focus on work, but even in the middle of meetings, I'd catch my mind wandering back to that voicemail. I just wanted them to stop comparing us. One evening, my assistant knocked on my door. Ms. Reed, there's a delivery for you. It was a large envelope. No return address. Inside were printed screenshots, bank statements, transfers, and loan papers. My stomach flipped as I recognized the signatures. My parents. They'd been secretly funding Ava's boutique again, even after it closed, through my father's retirement account. But what caught my breath was the latest transaction. $18,000 transferred from my mother's joint account into Ava's name, dated just 2 days before she disappeared. They hadn't been broke. They'd been hiding her mistakes. Again. That night, I drove to their house. Mom opened the door, startled. Hannah, what are you doing here? I handed her the papers. You lied. You said Ava had nothing. You emptied Dad's savings for her again. Her voice trembled. She needed help, Hannah. You don't understand the pressure. No, I said firmly. I understand exactly what pressure looks like. It's working yourself sick while your family funds everyone else's dreams. Dad appeared in the hallway, face red with anger. You came here to lecture us after what you did to your sister? What I did? I laughed bitterly. You raised her to believe money fixes failure, and called it love. I worked to fix myself, and you called it selfish. He didn't answer, because for the first time, he knew I was right, and what came next would prove it. 2 days later, the truth exploded in a way none of us could have predicted. I was in a client meeting when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Calls, messages, notifications. I stepped out into the hallway, opened one, and froze. Local news headline. Family accused of business fraud after daughter misuses retirement fund. Parents under investigation. My parents' names were in the article. Their faces, too. Someone had tipped off the media about the exact transactions I'd confronted them with. I hadn't said a word to anyone, but someone else clearly had. Within hours, their bank accounts were frozen, and the family home was sealed for review. Mom called me sobbing, voice ragged with panic. "Hannah, please, they're saying you did this. That you reported us." I swallowed hard. I didn't, but I'm not surprised someone finally did. "You're lying," she screamed. "You've always hated your sister. You wanted revenge." "No, Mom," I interrupted quietly. "I wanted respect, but I stopped expecting that a long time ago." She hung up, sobbing. That night, I sat by my window, city lights glinting against the glass. I couldn't stop thinking about who had sent that envelope, the one that started it all. And then it hit me.
Ava.
The last time we spoke, her eyes had been clear, tired, but sharper than I'd ever seen them. Maybe she'd finally seen the truth too. Maybe she'd decided to burn down the system that raised her broken. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I didn't want to destroy them, Hannah. I just wanted them to see you." For once, a lump formed in my throat. Ava hadn't vanished into guilt. She'd risen into courage. The next morning, I drove to the coast, the same motel where Ava had been found weeks earlier. Something in me needed to see her, not as the sister who'd been spoiled, but as the woman who finally broke the cycle. When I reached the door, she was sitting outside, wrapped in a blanket, sipping coffee from a paper cup. She looked up and smiled faintly. "I figured you'd come," she said. I sat beside her. The air smelled like salt and rain. "It was you, wasn't it? You sent those documents." She nodded slowly. "I couldn't let them use Dad's money again. Or yours. I thought maybe if they lost everything, they'd finally stop pretending love means control." I exhaled. "You knew it would destroy them." Her eyes filled. "They destroyed themselves a long time ago. I just stopped cleaning the mess." We sat in silence for a long while, two sisters who had spent years fighting for the same thing without realizing it. To be seen, to be valued, to be free. Finally, she said, "You were right to walk away. I hated you for it, but you were brave first. I was just late." I smiled softly. Late is still on time when it saves you. Ava laughed through her tears. "So what now?" I looked toward the ocean. "Now, we build something that doesn't need their approval." That night, I sent one final message to Mom and Dad. "I forgive you, but I won't return. Family isn't blood. It's honesty." No reply ever came. But I didn't need one. Because for the first time, my sister and I weren't competing, we were rebuilding. Together. And the first name on our new business plan read, Reed and Reed Consulting. 6 months later, Reed and Reed Consulting opened its doors, a small glass office near the bay, sunlight spilling through tall windows, our names etched side by side on the front. No investors. No handouts. Just two sisters who had finally learned how to stand without anyone's permission. Ava handled the creative side, branding, design, strategy. I oversaw the operations, client deals, and contracts. We worked late, laughed often, and healed in between emails and deadlines. One afternoon, a courier dropped off an envelope. Inside was a check, $500 signed by Mom. No note, just the memo line. "For your first invoice. Proud of you both." Ava's eyes glistened. "Do we cash it?" I smiled.
No.
"We frame it. We hung it by the entrance, not as forgiveness, but as a reminder that closure doesn't always come with words. Sometimes it's silence that says, 'I see you now.'" A year later, our company crossed $5 million in revenue, the same number my first deal had hit when all this began. Only this time, I wasn't alone at the top. During our anniversary party, Ava raised a toast to the sisters who were told they didn't deserve help and built everything anyway. The room filled with applause, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. I looked around and realized something quietly beautiful. I no longer needed validation. I had peace. Outside, the city lights flickered across the water, soft and forgiving. I whispered, almost to myself, "Some debts aren't meant to be paid back. They're meant to be outgrown." And in that moment, I